Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicole Nicholas, and I am the Associate Vice President of Special Projects for Otis College of Art and Design, and we are thrilled to welcome each of you here today. Today's webinar is going to focus on the new Creative Economy Dashboard and will be led by our research partners from Westwood Economics and Planning Associates. But first, we wanted to give you a brief background on who we are. Otis is the first art and design school in Los Angeles. We are a nonprofit institution, and for the last 106 years, Otis has educated generations of influential artists and designers. Today, we serve over 1,300 students through our BFA and our MFA program, and our degree-granting programs include animation, fashion design, game and entertainment design, fine arts, graphic design, illustration, product design, and toy design. To cater to lifelong learners everywhere, we also have youth programs where the learners start as young as 5 years old. And we have year-round extension programs with one-off classes and more thorough certificate programs that are open to learners of all ages. There is space for everybody here at Otis. Of our current BFA and our MFA student body, 32% of Otis students are first-generation college students, and over 70% of our students are students of color. From the class of 2023, we have over a 96% employment rate, and around 90% of recent graduates are working in art and design fields. So as you can see, we are very dedicated to creating pathways to successful creative careers, and we are vested in the status and the impact of the creative economy, which is what we are here to discuss today. We have produced the Otis Creative Report on the creative economy since 2007. For the last 17 years, this has been an invaluable resource analyzing the influence and the impact of creative sectors overall throughout California. Just last month, we launched the Creative Economy Dashboard. And with that, I am pleased to turn it over to our partner, Patrick Adler, a principal of Westwood Economics and Planning Associates, to tell you more.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's my distinct pleasure to welcome you here to this launch and tutorial of our dashboard. And just by way of introduction, I want to, of course, acknowledge Otis, our fantastic partners here, my own firm, Westwood Economics and Planning Associates, and all the people in our team, and Zuhil Data, who are the brains and hands behind this wonderful dashboard tool that we'll be getting into in just a bit. I do want to speak a little bit about where we are within the life stage of the Otis Report on the Creative Economy. So as Nicole mentioned, the Otis Report on the Creative Economy has become the authoritative resource reporting on the health and prospects for the creative economy in California for more than a decade. And we at Westwood have been privileged enough to be trusted to help Otis and stakeholders in the creative economy in California launch a sort of next life of this project. And I just want to describe that very briefly. So the first plank of Otis Creative Economy 2.0, we might think of it, is turning this traditional static report, which was often printed out, this dead tree version, into a live interactive dashboard that would have all the same material from the original report and more, and also have some other advantages. The advantages being that because it's more interactive, multi-screen, you can actually put way more material, way more geographies, using way more variables into this format than you could in a traditional linear report. You can also update material regularly. So traditionally, the Otis report is actually it's using older data because this data tends to be lagged, and it's released on an annual basis. So by the time you get to the end of the period, the Otis report period, like you're approaching the next report, the data is actually pretty out of date. But the dashboard format allows you to bring in data as soon as it's published so that what you're looking at on the screen is the most current view of the creative economy possible. And then there's also this choose your own adventure aspect to this. So if you are coming to the Otis project from Riverside County, then you can look at statistics that are geared to Riverside County if you want. If you're doing historic research, going back to say 2009, near the beginning of this project, you can do that. If you want to stay and linger with more data, you can do that. So yes, we believe that giving power to users is going to create more engagement and allow users themselves to unearth research insights that us on the research team don't have the time or orientation to find. And then, finally, once you build a dashboard, you have built a lot. You've built a lot of the infrastructure that you need going forward. So instead of working on recreating the dashboard in the same way you would recreate a report, you can actually focus on creating new features to make the dashboard better, more usable. And this theme of like freeing up resources to redeploy elsewhere is also the main theory of the case for the Otis report going forward. So now that there is a dashboard, now that the data analysis is somewhat automated, although the interpretation is not automated, and we'll get to that in a minute, what you can do is redeploy resources to more detailed, hopefully more satisfying research projects that look into key areas of the creative economy in California. And so that brings me to a bit of a retrospective on the 2023 program of research. What we were able to do, in addition to standing up this exciting dashboard, which will be the main focus of this session here today, is we were able to do 2 in-depth reports on what was the leading theme in the creative economy in California last year, which was the entertainment sector. So the entertainment sector experienced, of course, 2 major strikes, major work stoppages. And what we were able to do on the Otis and Westwood teams was put the resources in to understanding the initial impacts of these on the entertainment workforce, the creative workforce in California. And that was represented in our report, The Day After Tomorrow, which came out late last year. And then also think through the implications of not just the strikes, but recent changes in the entertainment industry in the streaming era. The sort of focal point there was the last decade of the entertainment industry. And that project was Die Another Day, which we released in May of this year. So those were sort of 2 types of research projects that maybe would not have been possible given all the resources that were previously devoted to the Otis report. But of course, for our key stakeholders, our longest standing followers, what's most important is understanding the California creative economy, its prospects, its current status. And so what we did in addition to launching the dashboard last month was we released a shorter report, a more thematic focused report, which looked at the key trends, the top level trends in the creative economy in California in the year 2023. So at this point, I just want to recognize our partners from Zoo Hill Data. Zoo Hill Data, what they've done with this dashboard, which you will see, is build something from scratch that really does meet the needs of followers of the creative economy in California. Every feature on this dashboard, it comes from a sort of demand from traditional readers of the report. And we're able to do this with Zoohill because they are elite programmers who, without having to use like packages like Tableau, can create something from scratch in 2 specs. So I really do want to acknowledge the Zoohill team for all the work that they've done on this project. And before we get into the dashboard now, I want to bring to the stage Joel, who's our partner. He's the executive director of the Snap Foundation, and he just has a few words. I'll see you in just a minute.
Thank you so much, Patrick. Thank you for having me here today. I'm really excited about this new direction of this report. But first, I'll just tell you a little bit about the Snap Foundation. We focus on the creative economy. We really want to see underrepresented youth from Los Angeles have access and the ability to pursue their dreams in whatever art forms they love, and to really find careers in those spaces. As many of you know, lots of schools have cut back on arts programming. And, even with some of the supports that we've seen recently through Prop 28, which I'm really excited about, there still needs to be a stronger emphasis on arts programming in schools and after school as well. And so this report really ties together so much of the work we're trying to do, along with many organizations that we support throughout Los Angeles in this pursuit. And so having fresh data, understanding the direction of things to come will help us really align our resources in a way that will hopefully lead to more work opportunities for our young people. So I'm excited to be here, really grateful that we get to participate in this, and excited to see where this work takes us. So thank you for having me.
Thanks so much, Joel. Okay, great. So I had introduced our partners at Zoohill, and one of the Zoohill principals, Alex, is in the chat, currently helping answer questions. And in the question and answer, we'll also benefit from his expertise. But in the meantime, let's get to sort of the main event, which is introducing you to the dashboard and reporting on key trends in the creative economy in 2023. Okay, so in addition to all these other changes that we've been telling you about to the format of the report, but we've also made some key changes to the analysis itself. And the first of these is to slightly modify the categories that have been used to understand the creative economy. We've expanded the number of categories, subsectors, and we've done it along kind of more what we believe more satisfying thematic lines. So before there was an entertainment industry, and now there's film, television, and sound, managers, independent artists, and performance separately. Before there was media and digital media, and some of our partners in the media industries pointed out, this is actually a pretty big division. It'd be helpful to understand what's going on within that big category. There's also, advertising somewhat separate, somewhat spans those two sectors. So we've broken out those two sectors as well. So what I wanted to do is just very quickly run through our key top-level findings. And then, as a way of introducing you to the dashboard, I want to go to the dashboard, show you the dashboard, and try to give you updated versions of those findings using the most current data possible. So once again, we released something last month, and traditionally that would have been the last data you would have seen as a subscriber to the Otis report for another year. But now we can actually have a more current conversation about what's going on. So just very quickly, 3 top-level results. We saw in California's creative economy in 2023, just to be clear, given the data availability for the report that we released, this is Q3 of 2022 to Q3 of 2023. We didn't quite have all of 2023 data then, but we do have it now. Anyway, at that point, what we saw was this very stark picture where all but one of these subsectors that I introduced last slide declined somewhat on a statewide basis in terms of employment. The lone star would have been or was the fine and performing arts subsector. Of course, film, TV, and sound. So these sort of front lines of the entertainment strike dropped 25% in that period. You saw losses across most of the other sectors. In the report, we discuss how a lot of this is related to the strikes themselves. So there's a lot of reliance of or at least relationship between other sectors and the film and television industry. You could think of advertising relying on a pipeline of titles. You could think of creative goods and products. Some of those folks interfacing with the entertainment industry. There was a decline across the board, but then it was also a somewhat mixed to weak period economically for the state as a whole, and that's going to filter down to the creative sectors. One thing that we're able to do a bit more in the current format of the report than we were able to do last year. I mean, last year there was some experimentation in this regard, is drill down into the metropolitan areas. As economists, we understand that the economy tends to be organized at the more regional scale, and the data is also available at that scale. So we're able to sort of report there. At the local level, what you see is that largely different local economies are leveraged to differing degrees to the entertainment industry, and this does affect their overall creative sector, and that's part of it. And then there's also the sense that maybe on the edges sometimes, if a sector's not really involved in unionized jobs, maybe it's able to grow even the greater entertainment sector. So that's what we saw in Oxnard. Oxnard actually grew in entertainment, had no change in the overall creative economy. A place like San Luis Obispo was somewhat exposed to the entertainment industry, but did so well in other areas of the creative economy that it was able to grow. So these are the sorts of insights that we're able to produce with the new format, and we're going to get into this in a minute on the dashboard. And then the final view, which we're very, very excited about, is a worker-centric view. So traditionally, it's been what's going on in the state as a whole, what's going on in counties or even metro areas. But these are aggregations. It's people, it's workers who are really the main unit of the creative economy. So as we are thinking through the status of the creative economy, it really behooves us to think about what's going on for creative workers. The key indicators for that would be employment rate the unemployment rate. So this is the major barometer for the workforce, and then also overall earnings in a week or in a month. So we're able to report on that using or in the dashboard now in the creative economy report. What we found last year, no surprise, unemployment rate did spike up from 4% to 5.1%. That's significant. The creative economy in the state lost as a whole 70,000 jobs in 2023. Few subsectors spare. That's of course consistent with the first slide I showed. And then, this is also consistent somewhat with the creative economy nationally. But this top number, this top bullet, is really the focal point of the format of the dashboard going forward. So without further ado, I do want to bring up the dashboard. I've been talking so much about it, and now we can look at it. And we're now moving more into kind of tutorial mode. And so just bear with me. So here's the dashboard. And you see a lot of features, a lot of dials up here. You can select your county. It defaults to statewide, but you can select your county up here, or if you're more graphical, you can select your county here. You want to, so here's Los Angeles County, but Los Angeles gets a lot of action. So there's San Diego County. You want to clear the filter. You could just go up here, choose a different county. So that's we're back to the state county, excuse me, the state view. If you want to just sort of reproduce the traditional analysis for the Otis report, although once again, because we have new data, newly released data, this is actually more current than we would traditionally be able to do with the report. Here's what you can do. It defaults to what we call totals. So this is total employment levels. But if you want to look at like changes over time and percentages, the sort of percentages that we report, then you can do this. And then there's the industry filters. So you could like a total creative economy or individual industries, like here's advertising. But one thing that we're going to try to do is as we release more and more reports, we're going to try to integrate those reports and the analysis therein into the dashboard. So I told you that we did 2 reports on the entertainment industry. Now you could just select the entertainment industry, but then if it's like entertainment industry is getting way too much attention, what's going on elsewhere, there's a filter to select not the entertainment industry. You can look at employment, you can look at wages, you can look at establishment, so excuse me, average wages, so wages divided by number of employees, total wages. What else we got here? On the right side, it's more of these like levels, so less things are going to change a lot from period to period, but the sorts of things that are very important, as a lot of you who are advocates for the creative economy try to make that the creative economy is important. We have a brand new feature this year, which is around impact. Impact is a key bullet point for a lot of people who are advocating for the creative economy. So you see, this is the total number of local services jobs created by direct employment in the creative economy. So the Otis report tends to focus on direct employment, whether you're directly employed in one of these sectors, but there's a lot of reliance by other sectors, and we sort of get at that here. If you want to look at San Bernardino County and the impact in San Bernardino County, you can do that. Just click San Bernardino County, you get that impact. So, if you are working on or around the creative economy in San Bernardino County, you don't need to run your own impact analysis to get a nice statistic for what's going on, how many jobs are being supported out there in San Bernardino County. So down here, composition of the creative economy, just to get a sense of like within each geography, what's the most important. San Bernardino County, a great manufacturing center, creative goods is leading there. You go up to San Luis Obispo, completely different, right? Traditional media. So I find this very interesting just to get to know the creative economy in the local areas of California, and hopefully you will as well. Here we try to, and this is something where we will probably be experimenting with more features. We try to distill what's going on with all these numbers into some bullet points. And then I've not yet told you about the exporting functions. So each of these images can be exported to your desktop, and there you go. If you want to send someone, maybe a skeptical public official who doesn't really believe in the creative economy, send them something about the creative economy. We give you that ability in the dashboard. So with that said, I'll move on to the cities view. We have 3 views, what we call the county, the cities, and the worker view. Cities view, what this does, and I mentioned the metropolitan region is sort of the key unit of how the creative economy is formed or operates, kind of on a day-to-day basis. The metropolitan region is basically the area over which people commute from home to work. And so what we do in this view is the focus really is on comparison. We provide a lot of tools to compare the the local creative economy of your choosing with another creative economy within the state, or you could say nationally. There you can clear. Say we want to look at, let's see who hasn't gotten some love yet. Fresno and San Jose. Yeah, those are two cities that haven't gotten some love yet. Okay, here's in totals. Obviously, this comparison isn't going to be the most useful because you're comparing one very large economy with one smaller metropolitan economy. You go to index, try to understand what's been going on in the creative economy in each of these places in the past year. And our tools allow you to do this. Okay, you say, okay, well, how much of this is entertainment? You get that. How much of this is not entertainment? You get that. Trends can be different. Trends actually you see very different, whether you're talking about the not entertainment industry, San Jose being key in digital media, not all of which is in entertainment, and entertainment. You see key differences. Yeah, and then on the right side, we have more of a national view. The focus of this dashboard is on the state, but in some cases, you want to appreciate growth, and sometimes the totals might be useful, but you want to appreciate growth in California and compare it to the nation as a whole. And we have a tool to allow you to do that. Again, I'd underscore that you can do historical analysis with this. Can't set end date before start date, so we're not crazy. But yeah, you can do historical analysis as well. And you can, once again, just as before, do analysis with each of these variables. So finally, I want to, and all the statistics that I mentioned before when I was reporting the results, you can reproduce, you can reproduce on this dashboard with more with the most current data possible. So finally, let's get to the worker dashboard. And again, I'm trying to give you a quick introduction to all these features, but we've got some hovers here to introduce each of these dashboards to you. We will, as we're still basically in the beta version of this dashboard, in the final built-out version, there's going to be an FAQ page with links to all the original sources for the data and answers to some of the most pressing questions. Maybe some of those questions will come up in the Q&A here. But okay, let's get to the worker dashboard. So the focus of the worker dashboard is on two variables: average weekly wages and unemployment rate. These are key once again, diagnostics, kind of pulses of the creative economy for creative workers. You want to know how much, you want to know if you have a job, you want to know how much money you're making. The key feature that we provide for in the worker dashboard is a sense of how different trends are affecting different demographic groups. So we've got age, citizenship, disability status, education, race, self-employment, and sex. And we not only provide for this in one category, but when possible, we provide for it in multiple categories. So just gonna reload. And yeah, so here's age. So if you want to look at age and race, you can get a sense of, and a lot of this, because what we're doing to produce these results is we're relying on a smaller survey. And some of the numbers on the survey are very small. In some cases, the numbers are too small for us to produce real estimates. So, what we say is if you don't get a result, then estimates are not possible due to insufficient sample size. But for a lot of really significant questions, like how, in this case, race and age interact, we can get a sense of what's going on. We get a sense here of how unemployment has changed. So this is 2010 to 2023. But if you go to the report period, it's changed over the period. So unemployment rate during this period is 5.1%, and that's up. So higher rates, less favorable unemployment rate than it was in Q1 of 2023. And then we try to have some insights here. Again, you can export those, export anything you want to the desktop and do what you want. Spread the statistics freely. So and yeah, sex here. So you see the same thing by age. You see sex. So you see the for 51 and older workers in the creative economy. Again, this is in the creative economy. Males unemployment rate is 4.1%. Females is 3.8%. So if you're a workforce development person and you want just a basic sense, are things getting better or worse? Or what's the overall unemployment level for a specific constituency? Then we give you the tools to do that right here in this resource. So I think I've bloviated enough. And we could get to some like quasi-bloviation in the form of questions and answers. So with that, I think I'm going to look at the Q&A. All right. Let's see. Oh, apologies. I haven't been in full screen. I'm sorry about that. Or I wasn't in full screen of the presentation, but let's look at some questions.
I'll just go in order that they were
Right.
typed in. The first question is anonymous, and it is asking, is the video game industry included in this report?
The video game industry is included in this report. It's in the new media sector. And I mentioned the second entertainment report that we did released in May. A big focus of that report is how, as much as there might have been some declines in some parts of the entertainment industry, the key theme has been a kind of reallocation of the creative workforce from old media to new media. And we really do call out video games. We call out Los Angeles, California's leadership position, and in a lot of gaming companies. So we don't, because of these statistical tools provided by the government that we rely on for most of the dashboard, don't really break out video games in a very satisfying way. We can't ourselves have a video game only like vertical on the dashboard, but there's two things that are helpful. One, in counties that have a lot of video games, the story you're seeing for new media is going to be probably highly influenced by the video game industry. And then two, the new media sectors do tend to all kind of row in the same direction. So if you understand how things are going generally in new media, you'll understand how they're going in video games.
Great, thank you. The next question is from Gary Smith, who had a question about the regions, and he's wondering if those regions are counties or cities. Is Los Angeles the county or the city?
Okay, the great question. So everything that we report, the lowest geographic unit that we report in this research is the county. So we don't currently have any city level data. Okay, so from counties, you can create things called metropolitan areas. And I think Gary's probably a bit more savvy of a user of this, but this is just for everyone's benefit. You could go into metropolitan areas. So in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles metropolitan area would include Orange County, and that's the sort of larger unit that we're comparing in the city's view. And we call it the city's view because colloquially we thought that made most sense, but technically this is the metropolitan region or the metropolitan statistical area.
Great,
so,
thank you. And then our next question is, does this track the closure of creative businesses as it relates to lost jobs?
That's a great question. What we get in the data from the statistical agencies is an establishment count. So, that's what's reported when you select this dial. And on a year-to-year basis, you can track if the number of total establishments is growing or shrinking. But that doesn't actually get at like how many businesses have shut down, because maybe there's just faster growth, or maybe slower decline or something. There's multiple sources for a net increase, or possible sources for a net increase in establishments. So this is something that we struggle with as analysts, because obviously there's something significant about closing a business. And there's other data sources, like for instance, in the state of California, if you're a large enough establishment, you have to actually file a notice with the state called a warn notice to advise the state that you're about to shut down, and basically allow workforce development agencies to make preparations. So this is a possible source of data as we think of like how to bring things into the dashboard that are going to be useful to all of you. And so that would be one example. And there's also, we're really right now keen on thinking through how to conduct primary research that we can plug into this dashboard. And that might be an example. It wouldn't be the easiest thing to track, but it would certainly be very useful.
Great. Thank you. The next question is asking if you are also able to see induced, etc., economic job impact.
Right. So induced job impact would be, okay, so let's go back. Let's talk about impact for just a second. So there's direct employment in the creative economy, represented by this number. And there's two types of indirect, we can say, economic impacts that this employment would have on the wider economy. One would be on like suppliers. So if you make sheets for the entertainment industry, and I've used that example, and I now, can't find, I can't think of like the actual use case, but I'm sure someone makes sheets for this for the entertainment industry. You're in the sheet industry. You mainly are operating separately, but you're making sheets for the entertainment industry. Our impact analysis gets a sense of that kind of activity. So the sheet maker, maybe some fraction of their jobs or some fraction of their overall business can be parceled out to the entertainment industry. Now, there's the second type of impact, which is if you employ people in the entertainment industry and you give them a paycheck, they're going to take that paycheck home and they're going to spend it in other sectors. And I understand this usually to be induced impact. So, if I work in the entertainment sector and then I go to Chipotle, then that is a kind of induced economic activity. And so both of those types of activities are tracked by our estimates. And our estimates are meant to be somewhat sensitive to changes in the overall composition of the economy and the size of the creative economy. Can we see employers who are part of these sectors? I think that question is about like individual employers, and the answer is no. Data like this would usually come from business intelligence databases, and it would only be available for really large companies. That's the public data. The State Economic Development Division does have specific data on individual employers, which for obvious reasons they make anonymous. And we would never publish, we would never want to, nor would we publish individual employer data. Okay. Okay, so a question is, will you be looking at the job loss impact, e.g. animation, from using AI versus talent in the creative economy? How many jobs lost to this? Okay, so this is a perfect opportunity to just like return to the sort of theory of the project at this point. This is a very important question. We talk to animators, we talk to other constituents in the entertainment industry. Like in the wider economy, there is apprehension, uncertainty about the actual impacts that AI are having on the labor force. There's nothing in the traditional Otis project or Otis report that would really allow you to answer that question. What the Otis project's trying to do is track employment, who's coming, who's going, what sectors are growing and shrinking, and then come up with some like first order explanations of these things, maybe provide a little bit of detail. The very crucial and current question of like the impact of AI on the labor force requires a separate dedicated research project. And this is the sort of thing that Otis will be commissioning going forward, now that it has built, essentially built the report for the next however many years, and is just going to be tinkering on the edges to make that report, to make that analysis more useful. So, there's going to be a report every year, cataloging, chronicling what's going on in the creative economy, as we've always done. And then there's going to be additional reports going in depth. So this is a really good candidate for a report, an analysis that Otis could do going forward. And who knows, we haven't quite figured out what we're doing in the next year. But this is something that has been on the agenda. It's something we've tried to think through. The only other thing I'd say about this particular issue is we did in the first report mine job postings in and around the actors strike, the actors and the writers strike. And we did see some preliminary evidence that there might be some like we said, AI, like specifically LLMs, might have something to do with some of the staffing that you see in sort of back office functions in the fall of last year. But that was just speculation, and what you want is a real research project, talking to people about AI specifically and looking at some like quasi-experimental data methods in order to get at that. Okay. Will you be breaking down the demographics in a future version? Seems like only having 2 categories is quite limited. Yeah, very sympathetic to this view. And I guess I just have 2 things to say, right? So traditionally, the Otis report has not gone into workforce demographics at all. So this represents a real breakthrough in our ability to understand what's the true state of the creative economy, which once again isn't just about what's going on at the county level, it's about like individuals. So now with up to 2 categories, we could talk about unemployment rate and weekly earnings. Is that the most satisfying? Not always, no. And one thing that might eventually make its way into the Otis report is more of a national view. And when you have more of a national view, you do have the luxury of going down a little bit deeper, more detailed. Maybe you could get to 3 categories, 4 categories. By being focused on California, we are limited in the amount of detail we can get at. But then also, and this is maybe repeating myself, when you when you free up resources, you can do in-depth research, including like interviewing people, surveying people, participant observation, more of some of these like qualitative methods, and like quantitative analysis of other data sets in order to get at specific questions that you might be interested in with a demographic group specifically. So I'm very sympathetic to this concern. And that comes from Gary Smith as well. Yeah, that's okay. That's what we've got. So Michelle Persoff asks, is there a list of definitions available? So yes, there's going to be. We've been calling it the page 4 with some of the technical details and links to definitions that will be available. In the meantime, you can contact us and we can provide links to particular definitions. Okay. Okay, so Brenda Reynolds is just asking a follow-up about the city. So to be clear, I'm not able to put up key items for the city of Los Angeles. The most detail I can get would be for the county of Los Angeles. Yes, at this point, county of Los Angeles is the lowest level of detail. However, I do want to highlight that the city level, I mean, particularly in our conversations with elected officials, it's the city level, maybe even like in some cases, the city council level that's super useful. There are ways that we might be able to do this using data partners from, for instance, I've already mentioned the state EDD. We're looking into ways to do this, but this is first year. We're taking a dead tree report, turning it into something active, something that's kind of easier to experiment with and to add functionality to. And I think people are highlighting new directions that we might go into. I think previously, when you're just saddled with the burden of creating this report every year, you can't even ask these questions or dream in these directions. Okay. Is there a resource where we could see the specific jobs that make up each of the creative economy sectors? I believe theater, music, and dance used to be called out. Where can we find them in the data? Okay, so I think there's two parts to this question. In terms of the specific jobs, I do want to get at a key kind of analytical difference that can sometimes confuse people. When you talk about any sector of the economy, like the creative sector, you can talk about the types of establishments that are involved in that sector. That's one way to define the creative economy. And this is the preferred approach for the Otis project, where creative firms are the sorts of firms that are producing things that are fundamentally symbolic or cultural in value. And we've defined that in our second report. We have a really strong definition for that. There's an alternate way to do this, which is to talk about creativity as a kind of skill or competency, and to talk about creativity as it interacts with the economy at an occupational level. So creative occupations would be those who are those occupations that primarily tap into the creative skills, generative activities of workers. And it's not that these are the only creative workers, the only ones with those skills or competencies. It's just that these are the workers that are paid to be creative in their jobs. We do not have an occupational view. We have an industry view. So, Sony Pictures, one of our partners, our partner for the event last month, Sony Pictures is a establishment within the creative economy. Sony Pictures employs almost every kind of occupation. So we can't say, here are the occupations in the creative economy. That would just be reproducing all the occupations in the economy. Now, Sony Pictures does tend to concentrate, and they tend to employ specific types of occupations. But this is kind of like percentage. So we can't really say, so if we said, here are the creative occupations, it would just be every occupation in the economy. This does sort of, again, continuing on the theme, occupational analysis is an area that we played around with as we were thinking through version 1 of this report, and it's something we will probably return to. So in that case, it'd be, if you're talking about, let's see, what's the sector? Talk about theater, music, and dance. What are the main occupations and how have they grown? Which occupations are being added to the sector? Which occupations are leaving the sector? Now, you've asked about theater, music, and dance. As a sector itself, what we have in the current view is the fine art sector. So this really is about the institutions that are supporting, or the institutions that are the home for a lot of these jobs. So it would be primarily museums and theaters and large cultural institutions, and then separately independent creators, independent dancers would be in a separate category, which is the managers, independent artists, and performers. So we have made in kind of splitting that category, we've made a deliberate decision that if you are an independent dancer, or if you're a dancer working for official ballet company, you are tied, like your employment prospects are somewhat different. And this goes back to seeing the creative economy as a sort of industry. So that's just some detail on how we've broken that up. But with anything, we want to be as helpful as possible. So if you have specific questions about a specific part of the creative economy that isn't represented here, you can ask us, and we can do our best to help you out, or at least to connect you to resources that allow you to do this. Again, this is maybe the 6th time I've said something like this, but I think it's very, very useful to have questions like, oh, can you do this? Can you do that? Because it shows like ways that this thing can become more useful to all of you. And the more of that feedback we can get, the better, because the better we can make the dashboard. I think previously it's just, again, like you're kind of running in place, trying to build a report every year, and you can't really focus on like expanding the functionality. So we're very close on time. So I'll just get to a few more questions. So yeah, okay. So do you have, this is for Give the more technical question. Elon Shore from DTLA Alliance. Do you have SIC codes for the industries included in each of the groupings or something equivalent? Each of these sectors, are big sectors is aggregation of NAICS codes, and we do provide those NAICS codes in our reports, and we provide those NAICS codes, and we will provide those NAICS codes in this 4th page that I referenced before. Okay, so Sony, where are they based? Sony would be based in, this is another question. Sony would be based in film and television production. So film, TV, and sound. Okay, so folks, we've had a lot of engagement. That's all the time I have, and I'll just give it back to Nicole to say goodbye.
Yes. And with that, Patrick, I want to say thank you to you and Tanner, who is also joining us from the Westwood economics team. We want to thank Joel from the SNAP Foundation, who's one of our supporters on the dashboard. We want to thank Zoo Hill, who have really been the engine behind creating this dashboard. And then to each of you who showed up live, we're watching this on repeat. We want to reiterate how excited we are about this dashboard, and how excited we are about how that it is a constantly updated source of reporting out, hopefully helpful insights to each of you. And with that, we also want to invite you to be our partners in this process. This is the rollout, so there's a lot we're all going to learn in the first few months of you using it. And if you have any additional questions or suggestions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us and see us as a partner in the process to help you in your business. So with that, thank you for attending our very first webinar. We will be hosting a series of these again and continuing to release bulletins as well. We are not abandoning our bulletins and the reports that we've been releasing over the last 17 years. So you will hear more from us, and we look forward to also hearing from you. Thank you and have a wonderful day.